We continue now at the top of Daf Kuf Samech Zayin Amid Beis in Meseches Bava Basra. This is Bava Basra Daf 167b. The Mishnah continues, Kosvin shtar lelova. We can write a shtar for the borrower, afal pisha ein malva imo, even though the lender is not with him. V'yein kosvin lemalva, but we can't write a document, a shtar for the lender, ad she'ei lova imo, until the borrower is present. And the Rashbam explains, Kosvin shtar lelova lios mizumin biyado. The idea is that the lova is going to have that shtar ready in his hand, loses lamalva, to give it to the lender, kashiyalva lomos, when he lends him money, afal pisha ein malva imo, even though the lender is not with him. If he's able to get the money from the lender, he wants to have the shtar at the ready. And the Mishnah continues, V'halova nosein sachar, and the lova, the borrower, is the one who has to pay for the writing up of the document. And the Rashbam says, V'halova nosein schar begemara parich pshita. The Gemara is going to ask, isn't that obvious? The halova nosein schar, that the lova is the one that pays the wages to write the document. Sharei kol hana shelo, because he gets all the benefits from the document. So the Gemara will ask that question. And the Mishnah continues, Kosvin shtar lemocher. We write a shtar for the mocher, for the seller of a property. Afal pisha ein lokeach imo, even though the buyer is not with him. V'yein kosvin lelokeach, but we don't write it for the buyer ad shehei mocher imo, until the seller is with him. And again, the idea is that the seller is the one essentially giving away the property, and therefore the seller has to be present if we're going to write up that document which will entitle the lokeach to the property. And the Mishnah continues, V'alokeach nosein schar. It's the buyer who pays for the writing up of that document. He's the one that is purchasing the land. And the Mishnah continues, Ein kosvin shtari erisin unisuin. We do not write shtari erisin, that's documents of betrothal, and nisuin, that's documents of marriage. We don't write that. Elamidash shneim, that has to be with the consent of both parties, both the husband side and the wife side. And the Rashbam explains, Ein kosvin shtari erisin mefarish be'ela megalchin. What are shtari erisin? It's explained in Meseches moed katan shtari psikta. This is a document which detailed the financial obligations between the two parties in a case of a marriage. Kid Rev Gidol, kama ata nosin levincha kach v'kach. Like Rev Gidol says, how much are you going to give to your son? This amount. Again, so the parents of the chasen and the kala, they write up this document, that's shtari erisin. And again, the Mishnah said, Elamidash shneim, it has to be with the consent of both parties, meaning avi chasen v'avi kala, meaning the father of the chasen and the father of the kala. It has to be midash shneim. And the Mishnah continues, V'achasen nosein schar, and the chasen is the one that pays the wages to write up the documents. He's considered to be the equivalent of the buyer, just like the buyer is the one that pays the wages to write up the documents. So too over here, the chasen is the one that pays the wages. And the Mishnah continues, Ein kosvin shtar arisos v'kablonis. We do not write up documents of a sharecropper or a tenant farmer. Elamidash shneim, that also has to be with the consent of both parties. And the Rashbam explains, and we'll go back to the shtari nesuin. The Rashbam says nesuin is ksuba, that refers to the document of the ksuba. And shtari arisos, again, that's documents of sharecroppers. Mekabel sada lemechse l'shlish v'lerevia. That's when a farmer is going to work the field and he's going to give the produce. He'll give a half or a third or a quarter to the owner. V'kablonis, and a kablonis is a tenant farmer. Chakiras kach v'kach kurin lashana. That's when the tenant farmer says, I'm going to give you a specific amount, not a percentage of the field, but a specific amount of the produce each year. So you don't write up those kinds of documents again. Elamidash shneim, both parties have to consent. And the Mishnah continues, V'hamekabel nosein schar. It's the farmer, the tenant farmer, or the sharecropper. He's the one that pays the wages to write up these documents. And the Mishnah continues, Ein kosvin shtari beirurin. We do not write up shtari beirurin, which the Gemara will explain what that is. V'chol ma'ase bezin, or any kind of a document that's written up by the court. The Rashbam explains, Kol ma'ase bezin kagon adrachta demodinon lelova v'azalu para beterem sheikosev. An adrachta is a kind of document which is used for seizing property from a borrower, and the idea is we need to let the borrower know first, so that way he can pay money. We won't have to seize from him. We give him essentially a warning. So again, when it comes to shtari beirurin and ma'ase bezin elamidash shneim, that has to be also with the consent of both parties. Ushneim nosein schar. In that case, both parties are the ones that pay for the writing up of the document. And as the Rashbam notes, when it says ushneim nosein schar over here, that's talking about shtari beirurin. By ma'ase bezin, it would actually be the person who is benefiting from the document. Let's say the malva who's seizing the property, he's the one that would have to pay for that document. And the Mishnah continues, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says, L'shnehem kosvin shnayim. When it comes to shtari beirurin, you actually write two documents, lazel yatzmo, v'lazel yatzmo. Each party gets one document. And the Gemara says, Mayu vilvad shehei makir. And what does it mean in the Mishnah when it says that the sofer, he writes the get or he writes the shover, but he has to recognize the parties? Who exactly does he have to recognize? And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav. Rav Yehuda says that Rav says, Uvilvad shehei makir shem ha'ish beget, b'shem ha'isha b'shover. As long as he recognizes the name of the man, the name of the husband when he's writing a get, and the name of the wife when he's writing a shover. And the Rashbam explains that we have to recognize the name of the husband when writing the get, meaning hasofer v'yoeda, meaning the scribe and the witnesses, they have to recognize that the name he's giving us is actually his name, because otherwise there's a concern. Maybe this get is being written for a different husband. What's going to happen is he's going to give it to the wife of a different man, and she'll be able to use the get to collect her ksuba. Hotzia get veini maksuba, like the Mishnah says, if a woman takes out her get, even if she doesn't have a ksuba, go v'ksuba, she's able to collect the ksuba. And similarly, v'shem ha'isha b'shover, we have to recognize the name of the wife when writing the shover, which is the receipt that shows that the ksuba was paid. That receipt is given to the husband. Shalotir melitano leish shagirish ishto v'tafsid ksubas al yada, because again, if it's not really her name, so maybe she'll give it to the husband of a different woman, and now the husband will be able to say he paid off the ksuba when he really did not pay off the ksuba. And the Gemara continues, Yosef, Rav Safra, Rav Acha bar Huna, Rav Huna bar Chinana. Rav Safra and Rav Acha bar Huna and Rav Huna bar Chinana, they were sitting. Yosef, Abaya, Gabayu, and Abaya was sitting by them. V'yasvi v'kami boilu, and they were sitting, and they asked the following question. Shem ha'ish beget in, Shem ha'ish alo. We're concerned that they recognize the name of the husband by a get, but we're not concerned that they recognize the name of the wife. Shem ha'isha b'shover in, Shem ha'ish alo. We're concerned that they recognize the name of the wife by a shover, but not the name of the husband. Why aren't we concerned for recognizing the other party? V'lechush, because we should be concerned. Dil makasav gita. Let's say, for example, we recognize the name of the husband, but we're going to write up the get. V'azulu mamti leila ita say dehech, and then he's going to go give it to a different woman. He'll give it not to his wife, but to some other woman who happens to have a husband with the same name. V'zimnin azla kasva isha shover, and the similar concern can be by a shover. You're going to write up this shover for the woman. V'yahava legavra delavdila, and she'll give it to a husband of somebody else. And so we should be concerned that they should recognize both names. They should recognize the name of the husband and the name of the wife in both cases. And the Gemara continues, Amar Lahu Abaya, Abaya said to them, Hachi Amar Rav, this is what Rav says, Shem ha'ish beget, v'hu adin l'shem ha'isha. They have to recognize the name of the husband by get, and the same is true, they must recognize the name of the wife. Shem ha'isha b'shover, they have to recognize the name of the wife by a shover. V'hu adin l'shem ha'isha. And the same is true when it comes to the name of the husband. And the Gemara continues, but still, even if you recognize both names, we still have a concern. V'leichosh l'shnei Yosef ben Shimon hadorim b'yirachas. Why aren't we concerned that there are two Yosef ben Shimons, meaning two husbands with the exact same name, and they're married to wives with the exact same name, and we should be concerned. He's going to go ahead and let's say he'll give the get to the wife of the other Yosef ben Shimon, and now she'll be able to prove she was divorced when she really wasn't divorced. Dilma kasav gita vazal mamti lei. To say the hech, maybe he'll write up a get, and now this guy will go ahead and give it to the wife of the other Yosef ben Shimon. If you're concerned about these issues, you should be concerned in any situation, even if you recognize their names. And the Gemara continues, Amar Lahu Rav Acha bar Huna. Rav Acha bar Huna said to them, Hachi Amar Rav, this is what Rav says, that is not a concern, because Shnei Yosef ben Shimon hadorim b'irachas, if you have two Yosef ben Shimons that live in the same city, we say that ein megorshin nishoseyen elazeh b'fnei zeh. We say they can't divorce their wives unless they're in the presence of one another, and therefore that is not a concern. But the Gemara still continues and asks, V'leichosh dil mo'azal l'masa achrisa, maybe we should be concerned that a person will go to another city, umachzik lei l'shmei Yosef ben Shimon, and then he'll establish a false name for himself as Yosef ben Shimon. V'chasav gita, and then write up a get, umamti leili ita sadehech, and then he'll go back to the other city where there's a different Yosef ben Shimon, and he'll give the get to the wife of that Yosef ben Shimon, essentially using a false name. Then it won't be a situation where we realize that there are two people with the same name of Yosef ben Shimon. And the Gemara continues and answers, Amar Lahu Rav Huna bar Chinana. Rav Huna bar Chinana said to them, Hachi Amar Rav, this is what Rav says, Kol shehuchzik shemo bi'ir shloshim yom. If anybody establishes their name in a city for 30 days, ein choshen lo, we don't have such a concern. And the Rashbam explains, ein choshen lo dechol kach lo yamachlef shemo zman meruba. A person is not going to use this false name for such a long time, pen yivod hadavar, because he's afraid that the matter will become known. And the Gemara continues, lo is chazik mai. Well, what happens in a situation where a person does not have a chazaka? How do we know then that this is his name? How do we establish that fact? And the Gemara answers, Amar Abaya, Abaya says, Dekaru Leviani, will call him by the name and we'll see if he answers. If he answers, that shows that this is his true name. And the Gemara continues, Rav Zavid Amar, Rav Zavid says, Ramah b'Rama Usay Zayr, a person who's cheating is able to cheat. And the Rashbam explains, b'Rama Usay Yada, he realizes he knows what to do. V'Yizor Lanos, he'll be careful to answer properly, to answer correctly. Hilkach, therefore, Ein Takana, there is no solution. Adad l'schazik, you can only write a get for a person if there's a chazak, if there's a true presumption that this is his name. And the Gemara continues, Hahu Tavra d'Havachasim alor Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba, there was a shover that Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba was signed upon. Again, a shover is held by the husband to prove that he already paid the ksuba. So the wife of this husband, she came before Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba, and Amrulay, she said to him, Lava no havoi, that wasn't me. Meaning she was claiming that it was a different woman that came, that pretended to be her, and they wrote up the shover and gave it to her husband, and really her ksuba has not been paid. And so Amar, sort of Yirmiyah bar Abba said, Ano nami, I also. Amri Hu, I said to them, I said to the other people signed, Lav ihi, that this is not the right woman, that you're not the woman that we signed for. V'yamruli, but they said to me, make a shu de kasha la, uvagar la kala. It is the same woman, and she got a little older, and her voice became more mature. You really are the same woman that we signed the shover for. And the Gemara continues, Amar Abaya says, Afa gav de Amar Rabbanan, even though the Rabbanan say, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Kuf Samech Ches Amar Aleph.